Hello, hello, and welcome. This is class 5 of our 5-part astrology series called Cosmic Heart, Your Guide to Astrology and Relationships. And I'm so excited to come to you with this 5th class. I have lots of great things to share today. So we're going to be talking today about past life connections and how we can identify those in an astrology chart. Actually, a synastry report, which is 2 astrology charts, 2 birth charts, yours and another person's, let's say, put together on top of each other, and then to see how they link up. And so that's what we'll be looking at today. Before we dive into that, I want to just reflect briefly on where we've been and say a couple of things about astrology and relationships in general that I haven't touched on yet. So the first thing I want to run through is just what we've covered so far in this class, just in high level. So our very first class was about the moon and the south node and how those illustrate our past, our lineage, either metaphorically or literally, as well as what we came in good at, what we came in, the set of habits, the archetypal set of habits and patterns and even addictions and expectations we have about the world and about relationships and about ourselves and all of these things. So we talked about that in the first class. And then in the second class, we looked at the Venus and Mars position on your birth chart and how those indicate the inner feminine and the inner masculine within each of us. It also shows what we're instinctually attracted to or just innately attracted to in others, in the sex that we're attracted to, the people that we're attracted to, and a little bit about the inner marriage. And then in the third class, we talked about the rising, the ascendant, and the descendant, and the axis on the astrology chart, which creates the relationship axis, and the 6 ways of doing relationship, according to shamanic astrology. Last week, we talked about the asteroids, and I gave you a brief overview of what the asteroids are, and then also we looked specifically at Juno because Juno has to do with relationships, and that's what we're looking at in this series. And so this 5th and last class, we're going to be talking about how to identify past and actually future karma or dharma, we could say, and how that might show up in our astrology. So a couple of things first. One of the things I haven't said, but it's important to say, is that shamanic astrology is not a tool for it's not a diagnostic tool. It's not a tool to determine whether 2 people should be together or not based on the details of their astrology, right? It's not a predictor of their success in relationship, whether they're destined to be together or not. It doesn't work that way. Relationship and 2 people coming together is more complicated than we know, and it's part of the great mystery. It's part of the great beyond that we don't fully have comprehension about. So shamanic astrology is not intended to indicate to us whether a person is right for us or wrong for us, or we should or shouldn't be with them, but rather it gives us tools to work with what's there. And that's what I've tried to offer in this session, this series, is what are the tools that we can use to gain greater insight and understanding about ourselves and others so that we can show up in relationship in our highest potential, in our highest truth, in who we came to be as souls. So I just wanted to say that because I haven't said it yet. When it comes to, okay, so let's shift gears. Let's get into this past life, karmic life connection stuff. Okay, so in this series, actually previous to this series, I did upload a video. I recorded a video about how to find your chart online, and then also how to read it just on a very basic level so that you can understand the symbols and all the signs and things that are happening in a natal chart. So the website that I recommended you get your astrology reading or chart at is called Astro Charts. It's astro-charts.com. So if you want to find your synastry, so if you want to play along with this episode, you're going to want to pause this video. If you're watching live, just carry on and you can come back. You'll want to pause this video, go get your chart and the person's chart that you're looking at, okay? So it could be your partner. You could also look at another person in your life. It could be a family member, could be friend, could be coworker, it doesn't really matter. But you would go in to that website and you would go to charts, I think, and you would choose synastry. And it'll give you an opportunity to put in your information and their information, and then you can find the chart that you'll need. You'll want to make sure that this chart has the nodes, both the north node and the south node, as that we'll be really focusing on those in this class. So you'll want to make sure that those are, you might have to go into settings and make sure that the south node and the north node show up. I sort of recall, I'm not super familiar with this website. It's just one of the best I've found that's a free resource. I use a professional astrology resource in my practice, but you'll want to make sure, I kind of remember that there was like maybe the south node, but not the north node. So just know that those are opposites. So you can find the opposite. If there's only one showing, you just go draw a line straight down 180 degrees on the chart and you'll find the other node. Okay, so that is how to find your chart. So this class is about, 5 minutes in, this class is about past lives and how they're illuminated in our charts, as well as other karmic links and even future karma with somebody, future destiny, future opportunities, future potential, okay? So, you know, you might say, well, hey, Jamie, guess what? I don't believe in past lives, or does this actually mean that I had an actual past life with this person? So what I want to say, and what we say in shamanic astrology when it comes to this material, is that a lot of this stuff can be taken mythically, mythopoetically, metaphorically, so that it's not so much important whether you actually had the past life or not, but the chart reveals something that functions as if. So they operate on this mythic level, these connections and these points of connection in charts. So they work as if they are true, right? Whether or not they're literal, we don't really know. And it's not so important actually, but what's really important is that they tend to operate on this level of working to show past familiarity, a sense of past familiarity with somebody, a sense that we've done this together before, a sense of like understanding each other, or a sense like, wow, we have something to do together in this lifetime, things like that. So it operates on that way. So I want to just invite you to, you can see this literally, and you can also see this more metaphorically, more figuratively, more mythopoetically, okay? So there's a few places on the chart that we'll be looking, and I mentioned them a little bit just as I was talking about the charts. We'll be looking at the moon and the south node, right? Because they indicate the past. So if we're talking about past lives, it's natural that we would talk about those 2 points on the chart. We'll also be talking about the north node, because the north node, so if you recall in a past video, I talked about the south node and the north node being almost like a time track, like where our soul is coming from and where we're headed to. It's like a journey. It's like a road map where you're like, I'm going from this city on the west coast to this city on the east coast, and like right. So east coast, west coast points. That's south node, north node. Okay, so they can indicate past life and future potential. So when they start to line up and make connections with another person's chart, we start to see that there's a potential, literally or figuratively, for past and future life connections. So let's begin. So just generally, when the moon or the south node is within 10 degrees of another person's personal planets, personal planets include, hi Phoenix, personal planets include the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, okay? The sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the personal planets, the ones that are closer to Earth, right? And then we get to the transpersonal planets, which are further out. Okay, so when the moon or the south node of one person's chart is within 10 degrees of a personal planet on someone else's chart, or within 10 degrees of their angles, which is the ascendant, the descendant, the MC or the IC, the midheaven and the IC point, the home and roots point, that all indicates past life potential, right? And like I said before, we're talking figuratively, we don't know literally, right? But they act as if there has been a past life connection. So the conjunction is the most important. So when the two line up, so there's lots of angles in a chart, but when the two line up is called a conjunction. So that means when you're looking at the two charts, you're going to see two wheels, an inner wheel and an outer wheel, one person's chart and another person's chart. And we're looking for alignment, okay? Or close to, within 10 degrees. So I want to go through the south node connections, and there's parallels with each of these. But so the south node, so when one person's south node conjuncts or comes together with another person's Venus, this often indicates a past life intimate connection, or it acts as if there has been a past life intimate connection. These are past lovers. So it often feels, when these people come together, it can often feel like we know each other, we've done this before, there's no proving to each other like who one another is. They already know how to be together. There's often a great rapport and a sense of familiar energy between them. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that this relationship is ideal for them in this lifetime. So it's just because there is this connection between the South Node and Venus doesn't necessarily mean like, oh my gosh, these two people need to be together again. It just indicates, at least on the mythical level, that these people have been together before. So there is the potential for them to come together and have great harmony in this lifetime. There's also the potential for them to come together and actually feel kind of an addictive quality, like, oh, we have to do this together because of this sense of familiarity and all of that. But it's not necessarily in their best interest in the present time. Okay, so that's the South Node and Venus. Then there's the South Node connection to the Moon. So when those 2 points come together, and because the Moon moves quicker than a lot of these planets and celestial bodies, this is a pretty potent link. The South Node and the Moon, very strong past life karmic connections. So this indicates generally past life family. These are two beings that we could say, at least on the mythical poetic level, have a deep sense of that they belong to the same family unit, or they have belonged to the same family unit, the same tribe, the same archetypal mystery school that we've been talking about before. There's a lineage connection is what this indicates. Okay, when we look at the South Node and the Sun, it also has a similar sort of connotation. It's a little bit more general. It's a sense like we've been together before. We've been either the same family unit or the same community, the same village, the same tribe. We've done this together before. So that's the South Node coming together with one person's South Node lining up with another person's Sun. And then we have a couple more, right? So we have Mercury, that often indicates Mercury and the South Node coming together, often indicates that there's a past understanding of one another, a deep understanding of communication. I had a person in my life recently where we had a South Node Mercury connection, and communication has always been really beautiful between us. Like we really have always been able to really understand each other without a lot of effort. Even though we're very different people, there was just this like sense that we get each other, we know each other, we understand how one another thinks and operates. We have great respect for each other in communication. Okay, and then there's a couple of the South Node connections with the outer planets, which are the transpersonal planets. We have, I'm going to talk about Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. So in each of these, the one with the planet is the doer. So if it's your Saturn coming together with someone else's South Node, this would indicate that you have been in a position of authority in the relationship, in a past relationship with this person. It could be teacher, parent, leader, one of those things, right? It could be positive or it could be not so positive, but a position of authority. So the one who's holding the Saturn position is the one who's had the position of authority in the relationship in the past. Same with South Node and Neptune. The Neptune person has been the one in the past that has given, that has allowed the other person experiences of expansion, inspiration. So the Neptune person has inspired and expanded the view of the other person, the one with the South Node position. And then South Node and Pluto indicates, the person with the Pluto indicates power over, a potential of having power over the one with the South Node in the conjunction. This could be positive. It could be a spiritual teacher that really helped bring that South Node person deeper than they've ever gone before. It could be someone who really expanded your awareness of something, someone who really brought a lot of magic to you, perhaps lessons about power, things like that. And it can also be more of a challenging past connection where this person did have power over you and actually brought you into sort of like an underworld, lower world experience. So there's some movement there, but there's definitely like a power dynamic that's been at play in the past between these two people. When the South Node is connected to another person, so when one person's South Node is connected to another person's ascendant or descendant, midheaven, these are the angles on the chart, like the 4 directions. The midheaven or the IC, which is the Home and Roots project, when they're in connection, like when someone else's south node is right on one of those points, it's a very strong link of both past lives and future karma. So you might have been together. This could indicate that you've been together in the past, that you are here to do more work together, right? That you're here to move into a new expression in this lifetime of the work that you're up to as souls together. Okay, so that's the south node and the various connections there. That's not everything. I skipped Jupiter. I think Jupiter's the only one I left out, but I will say south node and Jupiter is, that conjunction is expansion. Jupiter is about expansion and that sort of thing. So similar to Pluto, where there's been an expansion and inspiration in the past between these two people. Okay, it can also indicate like, yeah, that there's been an expansion in the relationship in the past in a really powerful way. Okay, the moon also does a similar thing when it's in conjunction to another person's personal planets. So this also indicates powerful past life connections. I'm not going to go through each planet because they tend to have a similar effect. So the moon and Venus, the moon and the sun. So you can go back and listen to all the things I just said about the south node and its connection points, and it's essentially the same, these past life connections. Okay, so we have the past lives. We have the south node conjunctions with these various planets in another person's chart indicating past life. Same with the moon. So then we also have these future connections, these future, like these indicators of potentiality between two people, and those are indicated by the north node. So as I said, south node, north node is a time track, south node being the past, north node being the future. So when we have a north node connection with somebody, it tends to indicate that there's a potentiality for some kind of work together. So, you know, we have these words and everyone has a little bit of different definitions, especially the word karma. But karma, you know, indicates like, you know, oftentimes like a past life thing or something that we're working through, some kind of pattern that we've been in. I'm not going to describe karma super eloquently, nor do I necessarily intend to here, but the idea of karma. And then we also have this idea of dharma, like our purpose, like what we came to do. And so this north node connection can be an indicator of karma and dharma. I mean, just depending on what words you want to use here, but something that a future potential, a future possibility of two people coming together. So the north node, so when one person's north node is conjunct, right, is in the same place as the rising, that's one of these, that's a really potent potentiality. It's like this pure, amazing kind of future potential. It's like almost like this visionary opportunity for these two people to come together. And it could be in partnership, it could be in business, it could be in family, like it could be in lots of different ways, but there's a lot of potential for these two to come together and do life side by side in some capacity and in some kind of relationship together in this lifetime. There's something that they have to learn from, a potential of learning together. When the north node is conjunct a woman's Mars, right, so their opposite gendered planet, or a man's Venus, it indicates a potential that you can learn from your partner about the inner anima or animus that you embody, the opposite gender planet, that you came to learn. So let me just give an example. We talked about this in the Venus and Mars class. So I'm a woman. So if I had my north node conjunct, let's say my partner's north node was conjunct my Mars, it could indicate that there's a potential that I could really learn from that person how to do my inner masculine, how to embody it more. And when I also have the potential, because it's my Mars, to help my partner reach their potential, because their north node is their time track, their destination point. So we have an opportunity to help each other with that archetype, I guess is the easiest way to say that, is that, you know, we can help each other with this archetype that we're working on. We have a shared archetype, right? When the north node is conjunct the sun, there's an all-purpose general like feel-good connection between them. Like, yeah, we have something cool to do together. Like and it could be any number of types of relationships. The North Node in Venus, so remember we talked about South Node in Venus being like a past life lovership. So North Node in Venus could indicate the potential for a current lifetime relationship, romantic relationship. But it also could just be like a natural affinity, a beauty, a sense of beauty in each other's presence, a strong connection that just feels good for the future. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the transpersonal planets. So we just went through some of the North Node conjunct personal planets. And then let's talk about the North Node conjunct like Pluto, Saturn, and Uranus. So with Pluto and Saturn and the North Node connection, it can be, again, this could be positive or negative, it just depends on the relationship. It can indicate that there's a teacher relationship there, that there's a potentiality for a teacher-student relationship here, a position, a relationship that may have a power component. Oftentimes this can feel like a relationship that feels a little beyond your control. A little bit like a Pluto cycle, which we don't have time to get into here, but I will love to talk about Pluto cycles because I just am coming out of one and it's a wild ride. But it is a powerful relationship. So you might find these in your connections and feel like, oh yeah, there's an intensity there. There's a there's just a powerful potential between us. Okay. North Node conjunct Uranus, the offering here is to stay really open, to expect the unexpected. You know, Uranus is sort of this like massive awakener, and so it's chaos. It can be a little bit like we don't really know what to expect. So in these relationships, when there's a connection there, it's good to stay open to the unexpected, be open to change, you know, be open-handed and unattached and really curious in these connections. The last thing I want to share is so if you have North Node conjunct North Node. Now the North Node is in a particular position in the astrology wheel in the sky. Every 18 years is when it comes back. So there's a year where it's right in at least in that same space in the chart. So everybody who's born at the same time has, you know, their North Node at the same position. So this would be a North Node conjunction where it's a different birth year. So this could be a mother and child where the mother gave birth at 18 or at 37, that there's a connection there. And oftentimes this can indicate like a karmic family bond, that there's a real working together for the same common goals that exist between these. And these can be, you know, different relatives. It could also be a student-teacher relationship. I mean, there's lots of ways that a North Node conjunction could be. You may or may not have a romantic relationship where there's 18 to 19 years apart. It's possible. So it might be a romantic connection where there's this as well. There's also this cool thing with nodal reversals. So, okay, so I'm just gonna put this in context. So nodal reversal. If my nodes are Gemini in the past, Sagittarius in the future, so South Node, North Node, right? I'm moving Gemini to Sag, and I'm in partnership or in connection with somebody who's going Sag to Gemini, so they have an opposite time track, right? That this can often indicate like a real working towards common archetypal goals. And I've actually had several people in my life that have this switch. We both have this, we have this switch of the nodes. So this can indicate working towards the same archetypal goals. Like you're up to the same work in this lifetime when it comes to your time track. Okay, so that's a run through of some past life, future potential connections in charts. Again, you can go to astro-charts.com to find, you just plug in your birth information, your partner's birth information, and all of that. And then you can find where these points line up in the chart. So definitely refer back to previous videos for other content, how to read a chart, all of those things. It's all there. I've laid out the foundation to get to this point. But I'd love to hear your questions, any questions you have about this material, what your thoughts are, whether you kind of noticed anything between your chart and your people and what you found and whether it resonates or not. Thank you so much for being part of this series. I really appreciate it. You can find me at sacredhearthealingarts.com, sacredhearthealingarts.com, and I offer there shamanic astrology. I do retreats all over the world. I offer Koya, which is a beautiful embodied movement practice, as well as some other modalities there. The other thing you can find there is an ebook, a free ebook that is all about the content from this series. So it's all the stuff that we just talked about. I actually did not get into past lives or Juno in the ebook, so that was bonus material for this video series, but everything's laid out there. There's also a chart about the archetypes, so what does Aries mean, what does Taurus mean, all of those, what archetypally. So that would be a great resource to go get as well, especially if you've been following along in this series and you really want to apply this information, which I hope you will. I offer astrology readings. So when it comes to relationships, I do I do individual readings, which I call soul map readings, because we're really looking at the map that your soul created as a template for this lifetime. A lot of intention there, not necessarily absolutes, but potentials. And I also do relationship readings, so we can look at your chart and your partner's chart, or your part and a chart and a family member's chart, or whomever you like, and we can start to look at these things together. So I understand that my intention for this class was to make it really accessible, and there's also value in having somebody who's been trained to really work with this material and to see the connections and put things together when you're looking at a chart, because it is really a whole picture activity of looking at all the pieces and how they kind of come together. It's like a poem to me. It's like you get this little line, you get this image, and then you start to put it together, and then all of a sudden the meaning arises, and you're like, wow, and you start to see deeper layers and deeper layers. That's sort of what it's like to read a chart. So thank you again so much for joining me. I'd love to hear any comments you have, even if this has long since been a live video, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. Take care and be well. Bye.